Tensión al límite. Atención a las palabras de Zelensky porque ha elevado el tono contra Putin mientras Rusia rodea Pokrovsk. Recordemos que Pokrovsk ahora es un auténtico polvorín y que muchos de los hombres de Zelensky ahora mismo están cercados siempre en base a lo que dice Moscú, ya que Zelensky asegura que eso es completamente falso y que aún pueden ganar la batalla. Vamos a escuchar las palabras de Zelensky ante esta situación que parece cada vez es peor para Ucrania. Atención.
Since the beginning of the year, we have synchronized 11 sanction packages with our partners, 6 with our colleagues from the European Union, also with the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Next month, we will complete the synchronization efforts. We will fulfill all our plans and obligations. This means that it is very important for us now. And today we are working with G7 energy ministers. We are working to ensure synchronization between the G7 countries. Who helps? Countries that reduce imports with the Russian Federation. Canada, Australia, the UK, Japan, and the EU. These are the key ones. Our partners have reduced as much as possible, have reduced to a maximum or even zero imports from the Russian Federation. And those who have increased it vice versa, India, China, Turkey, and Central Asia, that is, former Soviet colleagues, let's put it this way. Yes, this is something we need to work with. We have a vision of how to work with this. The US sanctions will probably take effect around November 20th, 2025, if there are no changes. After these sanctions, according to our data, Russia will lose $50 billion next year.
Fijaros cómo Zelensky sigue fiándose de las sanciones europeas, teniendo en cuenta que esto lo hemos estado explicando en varios capítulos, que realmente las sanciones no están funcionando. Incluso llegan a decir que los activos que se están enviando a Ucrania, muchos oficiales los pueden estar enviando de vuelta a Rusia. O sea que mucha atención también a esto. Atención.
So, we expect on these key countries that have increased their exports that the United States and I will work to reduce these energy imports from the Russian Federation as much as possible. Because the foreign minister has just given me all the data on the example of China. For example, China imported $120 billion worth of goods. Imagine if the US imposes sanctions, after the reduction will be 50%, and just China's imports are $120 billion. They are the biggest player, supporter, in this war. International experts estimate that the economic impact of the new package will be up to $120 billion. This is also important because it means a direct reduction in revenues to the Russian budget, which is mainly used to finance the war. We are watching. Andriy Ivanovich, sorry, so as not to confuse anyone. I was talking about the US sanctions. Plus, this is $50 billion on oil, and part of the 19th package is up to $120 billion. In addition to these sanctions, we also have the so-called kinetic sanctions, i.e. strikes, and work in the hinterland with UAVs. We are talking about a distance of more than 120 kilometers. That is,
bueno, como dice el oficial, por cierto, ahora dependen directamente, sobre todo en el tema de en los drones. Porque si ya no van a tener misiles para poder llevar a cabo esos ataques, ya lo decían, por cierto, necesitamos drones sobre todo para poder de alguna manera atacar igual que están haciendo los rusos. Porque claro, los rusos cuando llevan a cabo ataques hacia Ucrania no lo hacen solamente con drones, lo hacen con drones y con misiles. Esto es muy importante también tenerlo en cuenta porque ese efecto no es el mismo, es decir, no es lo mismo atacar solo con drones, que es lo único que puede hacer ahora mismo Ucrania, que atacar con misiles y drones al mismo tiempo como hacen los rusos, ¿no?
More than 100 kilometers. It is also worth emphasizing that we were pursuing the legitimate goals to fulfill the tasks of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the President of Ukraine. Oil production and refining is 90% of the budget of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. In other words, these are dirty oil rubles that the enemy is using to kill us. So, from the beginning of 2025 to the present day, we have destroyed 48% of the enemy's shells. This is a priority today. It was recognized by the President of Ukraine. They produce 30 a year, but the number of destroyed ones is much higher than the number they produce. That's why we are working on it. As always, we will keep you updated on the results in official communications de facto. Since the beginning of the year, we have already adopted more than 50 sanctions under these decrees. No other country has such a pace of work. In addition, I really like the ability to link critical sanctions to classic sanctions. I mean that when we strike at the critical infrastructure of the Russian Federation, they also have to repair the relevant facilities. The repair of facilities in one way or another related to the need to import components. Imports of components, expensive technologies, and installations are usually either already partially covered by sectional restrictions or will be fully covered by full sanctions in the near future.
For the first time, information about the destruction of Oreshnik on the territory of the Russian Federation.
Antes de ir con los Oreshniks, es curioso porque el oficial ucraniano asegura que Rusia tendrá que pagar por los destrozos de guerra. Muy interesante esto porque, bueno, ya se sabe, ¿no? Claramente el hecho de que los rusos dicen que esto es una auténtica barbaridad, ¿no? Que estén diciendo que ellos van a pagar por algo que evidentemente, bueno, tú tienes que pagar sobre todo cuando has perdido la guerra, ¿no? Normalmente.
Was reported here. And when this happened, please open the veil, and whether it is possible to implement the same scheme in Belarus.
We are not going to go into details today. As I said, among our defense forces, the Security Service of Ukraine, the GUR, and the Foreign Intelligence Service were involved in this. The destruction was 100%. It was a very successful operation, but it was not publicized at the time.
I understand that the topic of sanctions is important, but what about Pokrovsk today? What is the situation there now? Because a lot of Russian information is fake.
I'm asking not to believe what Russia says. I was in some offices, geometrically even, and saw different maps. I have seen a map of the fighting on the territory of Ukraine that looks so, let's say, strange, and I have also seen other maps. That is, for some reason, we have different maps of the actual fighting in Ukraine. Why in Russian ones are different, it's understandable, but in Ukraine, Russia, Europe, and the United States, maps differ, and at some point, we coordinate all of this.
Esto es muy interesante, porque Zelensky es la primera vez que dice que los mapas de guerra... Es impresionante porque, como decimos, sí que es verdad que si esto es así, si difieren los mapas de combate, ¿quién está en lo cierto, no? Sería muy interesante sobre todo saber la verdad. Curiosamente sí que esto es así, es decir, los rusos confirman que, por ejemplo, Pokrovsk está completamente cercada, los ucranianos dicen que no. Esto significa que hay mapas distantes, pero bueno, los que realmente están sufriendo esta situación en un mapa es así, otro mapa es así, o un mapa es correcto, otro mapa no lo es, los que realmente están teniendo esa problemática son los soldados, ¿no? Al final. Entonces, claro, si a un soldado no se le está dando la información adecuada o se le está mintiendo sobre cómo está la situación, pues evidentemente estos soldados pueden ir con una serie de información que al final se convierte en falsa en el campo de batalla y ya no pueden retroceder, ¿no?
Understand where there are certain problems and where there are certain manipulations. That's why the situation in Pokrovsky is complicated. You see, all their strength. You know that in this direction there are 170,000 enemy troops. It is a lot. Oh, really, really. And the next morning, I talked to the commander-in-chief. There are no changes in Pokrovsk. There are Russians in Pokrovsk. Our troops destroy them little by little. Therefore, we need to understand that there is a serious, serious battle for Pokrovsk. They were tasked with taking Pokrovsk, to take our Pokrovsk, specifically this city.
Pues ahí lo tenemos prácticamente, ¿no? Zelensky asegurando que Pokrovsk sí está en parte, rodeada por soldados rusos, pero que no tiene nada que ver con que haya caído. Muy interesante. ¿Vosotros qué opináis? Dejad los comentarios. Nos vemos en el próximo capítulo, amigos. Hasta luego.